Hey guys, how's it going? So, FGO has a lot of traits attributed to its servants. For the most part, these traits are fairly self-explanatory with things like Greek mythology male, fae, or animal characteristics, and others like that. There are also some that I've covered in the past that are reliant entirely on one servant in question, like Brynhild's Beloved or weak to Enema Elish. But then there's the weird ones that may seem simple on the surface, but when you actually look at them, you just kind of scratch your head. Ones that you look at and wonder, why are they even in the game? So today is dedicated to those weird traits with their weird members in them. Let's get started. Let's start with a fairly easy one, the Child Servant trait. This trait exists because of Summer Ilia's skill Summer Vacation Child, in which extra effects are applied to child servants. Now, everyone knows that there are some characters in Fate that take on the appearance of children. Jack, Nursery Rhyme, Abby, and Bunyan are good examples of this. The list then also just includes some characters that are just younger appearing, like Kid Gil and Alexander. I will even give Fate the benefit of the doubt with the inclusion of mentally childish servants like Asterios, but then it branches into the questionable territory. Hans is considered a child servant, but Helena is not. Eris, who is canonically 14 years old in both of her forms, is rightfully put here, but Liz, who is also canonically 14, is not. Even in the mentally childish faction, I would be led to believe that King Protea would be here, but she isn't. This trait is wildly inconsistent and for no real reason either. I'll be honest, I don't know what age Kiyohime and Van Gogh are supposed to be portrayed as, but by this logic, other characters like Nemo or even Artoria, who is forever 16, should have this trait, but they don't. You would think being able to identify a child would be fairly easy, but I guess Fate just can't keep its own lore straight. Next up is the saberface trait. I have a personal beef with this trait because the game itself doesn't know what it means. Being blonde and having an ahoge seems to be the only real stipulation, but not really. Like, you would think that it would be the easiest trait in the world to be able to identify because it's literally just look at her. Now look at her. Do they have the same face? Yes. Are they a saber face then? Yes. How about no? Do they have the same face? No. Okay, it's not a saber face. It's as easy as that. But this tag of being a saber face gets slapped onto any leading female in the Fate series for some reason. There are some that are totally justified in this, like Okita and her variants. They literally share the exact same face as Saber does. There are also some that are kind of questionable, like MHX Alter, who has gone through such a significant change from the original Saber design that they share only kind of a passing similarity, but the knowledge that this character was based on Saber kind of qualifies her for being a saber face, but then there's ones that are just wrong. Mordred is blonde and has a unique face different from Saber. I will die on the hill that she is not a saber face despite her being her kid. She lacks enough of the features that make up what a saber face is to stand on her own without the need of being one. Nero falls into this grouping as well. Nero is visually distinct from Saber in so many ways that I cannot believe that she actually has this trait. Genuinely, the only connection she has visually to Saber is the ahoge and being blonde. By that definition, Fionn is a saber face for sharing the same hair color as Saber Alter. Finally, there's Jean. I know her name is pronounced Jean, but I'm from the Midwest, so I just see Jean and I read it as Jean. The game has created a new phylum of the saber face in the Jean face. I will concede that Jean Ruler deserves to have this trait if we're going to go off of her FGO art and not off of her Apocrypha art. In Apox, she still looks kind of similar, but is distinct enough to stand alone as a character. And then none of the Jean offshoots look anything like Saber outside of having the same artist. Jalter looks nothing like Saber, even with the exact same artist. Jalter Lily looks like a unique character and doesn't even resemble Saber Lily, who she would be kind of close to in age. And then there's Lakshmi Bai, who has a face closer to Jean's than to Saber's, and that middleman really makes her look distinct. The tagging has no bearing on the game itself, so in reality, someone could theoretically just go alter the fandom site where I'm pulling this info from, though I would advise against it. Another favorite trait of the FGO devs is writing. This is generally a passive given to servants that have some experience with writing something or other. As such, you would think that all of the writer class would have it then, right? Well, not exactly. Edward Teach, Carmilla Ryder, and Bonnie and Mary Reed, and Mordred Ryder do not have it. Immediately, this creates a major conflict in the classifications. Meanwhile, this skill is given out fairly freely to members of the outside classes, primarily Sabers. In fairness, a lot of them do make sense, as many members of the Saber class also have tales of their exploits on horses, or even appear with their mount like Lan Ling does. There's even some like Kama and Jinako, who get the pass-through virtue of art depicting them on their mounts of choice, but then there are ones that are just odd. Yamanami Keisuke has this skill while having no notable exploits on horseback. In fact, the only reason why I can think of him having this is the fact that he had to run from the Shinsengumi near the end of his life. Saber Tomoe has the skill as well, while it's absent from her archer version. Suzuka has the skill with no notable legends about it at all, and Oberon rides a tiny moth in one of his attack animations, so that's good enough to give him the passive. Berserker Musashi manifests a jet ski, which I suppose makes her qualify, and then there's just a list of others who just kind of inherit the skill, like Mash and Banshee. Honestly, it feels like if you looked at a horse in your lifetime, you could qualify for this skill, or just be like Maeve who rides men to get the skill. But hey, if you drive a boat like Edward Teach does, or Anne Bonny and Mary Reed, you don't actually get it because it's not real riding. The last one that I want to touch on is just such a bizarre trait to begin with. What do Ashvathaman, Melusine, and Romulus all have in common? They can't be turned into pigs. Yes, for some reason or other, there is a list of servants and enemies that are unable to become pigs. The Pigify state is essentially a specialized stun used by Cersei with her NP. As such, I can find maybe two major factors as to why someone is unable to become a pig. Either they have an astounding level of magic resistance, and as such can just resist the ability through sheer skill and talent. Alternatively, there are servants that fit this bill that may simply just be ones that Cersei does not deem fit to become pigs. This sounds like a weird stipulation, but for some reason she is written in that she wants to turn those that she cares about into pigs, and also she finds pigs incredibly cute. As such, it may be possible that certain servants repulse her so much that she simply doesn't want to tarnish her image of the pigs at all. Alternatively, I thought that this trait may have been influenced by the divine trait, as a fair amount of the servants listed are divine, but the inclusion of the Mecha Ellies, the Shikis, and Babbage, and a few others make it just odd. Plus, there's a huge amount of divine servants that are just absent from that list. Like, genuinely, I'm looking at the list and trying to find out if there's a consistent reasoning for any of it. The most that I can see is that it's split up into actual gods, robots, and some animal characteristic things, but even then, it's just inconsistent throughout. I don't know, man. It's weird. They don't justify it at all. But that's what I've got for you. I look forward to when they add in the forklift certified trait. Do the YouTube stuff, check my links, keep your chin up. Peace.